Hello students, I am back with my next video, class 11, chapter 1, the living world, part 2, and I hope that you guys saw my previous video, the living world part 1, and those who didn't watch my video, first time watching my video, the part 2, please go through the first part also. So let us begin with our new section, that is the diversity, the world. The diversity in the living world. And we all know that we are living in a world where large variety of living organisms are present, right? That is, Earth is a diverse planet with millions of different types of plants or different types of living organisms are there, and we can see them with our naked eye. And there are several organisms that we cannot see with our naked eye, but they are all around us. And the living organisms that includes in this world are the animals, plants, then microorganisms, fungi, etc. And this range and diversity, that is range means the number and diversity means the types, that increases as we try to increase the area of our observation. If you go and observe the new area, we can find wide varieties of organisms there also. So, the range and diversity increases as we increase the area of our observation. And you know that each different kind of plants, animals or organisms that represent the species. What is the species? That is each different kind of plants, animals or organisms that represent the species. In other words, species can also be said to be a group of similar individuals sharing what a common gene pool and interbreeding freely, producing a fertile progeny. That is, a species, that is a simplified way they can say that each different kind of plants, animals or organisms on the sea and on the earth is known as a species. Or other way you can see that species are a group of similar individuals sharing a common gene pool. That is, they are having similarities and they actually shares a common gene pool and interbreeding freely and produces a fertile progeny. And you know that there is 1.7 to 1.8 million species are known to us now, and this number also increases as we explore or we expand the new area. If you go and search for the new area, we can find the more number of organisms, so that with the old ones, if it means already identified other unknown organisms are there. So if we explore or if we expand our area of observation, we can see that this number, that is as present, that is 1.8 millions are there of total species, but their number increases when we try to increase our area of observation. That is, you can, if you go to the forest, you can see more number of different varieties of the species or new organisms can be identified, unknown organisms can be seen there, right? And that is, the number and type of organism that present on the earth are known as biodiversity. The next term, that is the first term that we learn, is a species. The next is a biodiversity. What is meant by biodiversity? It is referred to as the number and type, that is range and diversity, variety of organism that is present on the earth is known as the biodiversity. Biodiversity. Next is a nomenclature. Before going to the definition of the nomenclature, we can see that there are large variety of microorganisms on the world, or we can see around us, right? And these organisms are known by the different names in different parts of the world, or the even in our country itself. That is, one part, one side it is known by one name, in another part it is known by the similar or the same organisms in known by different names in different part of the world. So what happens if the same organisms is named by different names? If the same organisms is called by the different names in different parts of the world, but there goes a confusion. So to avoid this confusion, the name of the organisms must be, living organism must be standardized. So, to avoid this confusion, it must be the name of the living organism must be standardized, such that if you standardize the name of the living organism is what will happen, it is known by the same name all over the world. So, if you standardize the name of the living organism, so single name will be there, so that single name with the same name all over the world is known. This organism is known by the same name all over the world. And this process, what is it? This process is known as the naming of the organisms is known as the nomenclature. What is meant by nomenclature? The naming of the living organism or the standardized system of giving unique or distinct name to an organism is termed as a nomenclature, or simply the naming of the living organism is known as a nomenclature. As a definition, that is a standardized system. It's a standardized system of giving unique or distinct name to an organism is termed as the nomenclature. But to give the names to organisms, we need to know its correct description. To name an organism, we need to know its correct description and to what organism is a name is attached. So, to name an organism, what you have to know? We need to know its correct description. Okay, and to what organism the name is attached, and that is known as identification. That is identification, the process of recognizing the identity or established characters of an organism. That is, identification means the process of recognizing the identity or established characters of an organism. And to make this process easier, scientist has assigned a biological or scientific name to the known organism. That is, to make this procedure easier, to make us easier way, that scientist want to make it easy, what the scientist had done, the scientist has assigned a biological or scientific name to every known organisms. And these scientific names of plants are usually based on the principles and the criteria which are provided or given in the as per the criteria and the principles in the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, that is ICBN. That is, in the scientific names of plants are usually based on the principles and criteria which are provided in the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, that is ICBN. And for animals, or animal taxonomists have evolved International Code for Zoological Nomenclature, or ICZN. That is, animal taxonomists evolved the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, that is ICBN. And this procedure for assigning names or scientific name to the living organism has been agreed by the scientists or biologists all over the world. It's already approved by the scientists or biologists all over the world. They also agreed. Okay. So what? And the scientific names help. The scientific name helps to avoid the ambiguity. Ambiguity means confusion, as each organism has only just one name. That is the advantage of the scientific, giving the scientific name. If you give the scientific name, a living organisms is named, assigned with a single name all over the world. It is known by that single name. However, certain universal rules are to be followed while providing a scientific name to the living organism. To provide the scientific name to the living organism, we are to follow certain rules, that is universal rules. And for example, the scientific name of a mango tree, that is Mangifera indica, right? The scientific name of a mango tree is the Mangifera indica. And you can see that whenever you are taking the scientific name, in the scientific name you can see the two components. That is, you can see the two components in the scientific names, and they are, first first name is the generic name, while the second name is a specific epithet. That is system of providing, and this system of providing a scientific name or the name with two components are known as a binomial nomenclature. That is, the system of providing a name with two components is known as binomial nomenclature. From the name itself is a binomial. Bi means two names for the naming of the living organisms, and it was proposed by the Carolus Linnaeus or Carl Linnaeus. He was known as the father of modern taxonomy. So, this binomial nomenclature was proposed by the Carolus Linnaeus, who was known as the father of modern taxonomy. And the binomial nomenclature, as I stated earlier, that is each scientific name has two components. The first component is a generic name, is also known as or genus, and the specific epithet or the species name, right. For example, here the Mangifera indica, Mangifera indicates a genus name, and the indica represents the specific epithet or the species name. And the Ficus religiosa, another example, that is the scientific name of the peepal tree. Again, the Ficus represents the generic name or the genus name, while religiosa represents the specific epithet or the species name. And as I stated, there are certain universal rules that you have to follow while giving the scientific name. First one, you already told that there are two components are there in the name, that is the generic name will be there and the species name will be there, genus and species name will be there, right. And another important point is that the scientific or the biological names are generally in Latin, that is irrespective of their origin. They are Latinized or derived from the Latin irrespective of their origin. Then next is, while writing the name, when you are writing with your hand, what you have to do? When you are writing with your hand, what you have to do? You have to underline both the words separately. You have to separately underline the genus name and the species name. And if you are typing or printing it, what you have to do? You have to make it printed in italics. Why you need to be in italics? To indicate their Latin origin. And then lastly, that is the genus name begins with the capital letter and the species name or the specific epithet begins with the small letter. That is universal. There are four properties are the universal rules of the nomenclature. First one is a biological name are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from the Latin irrespective of their origin. And the next one is the second point is, first word is the biological name that represent, first word the biological name represent the genus, while the second component or second name represent the specific epithet. And while writing or when writing with your hand or handwritten, both the words are underlined separately, or you are printing it out in italics to indicate their Latin origin. And the first word that denotes the genus usually starts with capital letter and the specific epithet that indicating the species that begins with the small letter. For example, Mangifera indica, that is a scientific name of a mango tree, or Ficus religiosa. You can say Ficus religiosa is a scientific name of the peepal tree. That Ficus indicates the genus name and religiosa indicates the species name or the specific epithet. And sometimes you can see the name of the author who first described the species at the end of the specific epithet. Okay. Sometimes name of the author you can see at the end. Author, that is the person who described the species. Person who first described the species are also added at the end of the end of the specific epithet, and it is usually written in the abbreviated form. It is a abbreviation. For example, Mangifera indica Linn. You can see at the end of the epithet, that is indica, you can see the lin is there, and lin is a abbreviation of the Linnaeus. It is an abbreviated form of the Linnaeus. Next is a classification, that is apart from assigning the, till now what we did, giving names to the living organism, right. So, scientific names are given. Apart from assigning the scientific names, the living organism, they must be aptly characterized. Okay, that is they must be aptly characterized or organized for easy study. And this process of grouping anything into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters are known as classification. So, apart from assigning name, it is very important to organize into different various groups, that is based on their easily observable characteristic. So, this process is known as a classification. What is meant by classification? The process of grouping anything into a convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. Okay. Easily observable characters basis of this grouping. For example, that is for example plants, then animals, cat, roses, flowers, these all are easy to recognize. And plants, animals, cat, dogs, flowers, roses are easily organized, and these all have their specific characters. They are organized that based on their specific characters and are convenient category that help us to study the organisms. That is plants. Example I have given is stated is that plants, animals, cat, dogs, rose, flowers. When we talk about the rose, the image of the rose is coming out in your mind, right? You guys don't have the, means in your mind you don't come to the dogs, but easily identifiable characters are the rose is there, right? Rose means it's means appearance is coming, the color is coming. So, easily organized based on the specific characters, and these are the convenient categories that help us to study the organisms. And there is a term, the scientific term for this category is called as a taxa. What is meant by taxa? The scientific term for the categories are known as a taxa. And here each of the mango tree, apple, each of the examples like mango tree, apple, neem, cat, dogs, all are taxas. And cat is a mammal. All mammals are coming under the animals. Therefore, a cat, mammal, animal represent taxa at different levels, right. That is, cat is coming under the mammal, mammal that is included in the animals. So, at different levels these all represent the taxa or categories. So, this kind of process of classifying living organism into different taxa based on their characteristics are known as a taxonomy. So, what is meant by taxonomy? The process of classifying living organisms, how into different taxa based on their characteristics is known as the taxonomy. And there are some of the characteristics that are used for the classification of the living organisms are their external or internal structures, their cell structure, then their developmental processes, or the ecological informations of the organisms are taken as the characteristics. So, the characteristics based on these characteristics like external or internal structures, structures of the cell, developmental processes, ecological information of the organisms are the basis for the classification of the living organisms into taxa. Therefore, characterization, identification, classification and nomenclature are the process that are basic to taxonomy. So, characterization is a process that is characterizing, identification that is easily recognizable character, classification means it is categorized into different means group into different categories for easily observable characters. The nomenclature means the naming process of the living organism. So, these all are the processes that are basic to taxonomy. Okay, that is process of classification of the all living organism into different taxa based on their characteristics, and the characteristics that used for the classifications are the external and internal structures, cell structure, the developmental processes, the ecological information of the organisms. So that characterization, identification, classification and the nomenclature are the processes that are basics to taxonomy. So, taxonomy is actually not new to the human beings, and human beings are very interested to know about the different types of organisms and their relationship among them. Okay. So, human beings, for the human beings taxonomy is not new, because they always search for the research for the new things or the new types, how they can. Initially they search for the means food, source of food, their shelter, everything like that. Nowadays also the human beings are behind the searching, or research are going on to find the types of organisms and their relationship among them. And this kind of study of different kinds of organisms and their diversity along with the relationship among them is known as a systematics. So, what is meant by systematics? The study of different kinds of organisms and their diversity, that is their varieties, their types along with the relationship among them. And the systematics, the word derived from the Latin word systema. That means systematic arrangements of organisms. And the Systema Naturae is a publication of the Linnaeus. That is, Carl Linnaeus published the book Systema Naturae. And this Systema Naturae contains 5,900 species of plants are actually included or involved, or it is published in this book. That is 5,900 plants are there. Okay. So, this Carl Linnaeus is known as the Carolus Linnaeus is known as the father of modern taxonomy. He was the he was the nomenclature, binomial nomenclature was introduced by the Carolus Linnaeus, and the systematics, the word is also derived by this person, and he wrote the book, that is Systema Naturae, and it contains, that is 5,900 plant species. So that today's systematics includes identification, classification, nomenclature as well as the evolutionary relationship among organisms. So, the today's systematics include identification, after first classification, then you have to identify, name, then along with this evolutionary relationship among them are also included. Therefore, in this diverse world, it is very important to classify and name a living organism. So, in this diverse world, it is very important to classify as well as giving name or nomenclature of the living organism for easy identification as well as the study purposes. So, these are in the diversity of the living, living things. So, what all things, we just recall that first we talk about the what is species and what is meant by biodiversity. Species means each different kinds of plants, animals or organisms and the is known as the species, or species in other words you can also tell the species are the group of similar individuals sharing common gene pools and interbreeding freely to produce the fertile progeny. And the second definition that you studied is the about what biodiversity. What is biodiversity? The types and number of the living organisms that is present on the earth is known as the biodiversity. And another term we learned is the biodiversity, then is the identification. Identification is the what is identification? What is identification? That is to know about the description of the organisms as well as to what the organism is attached to. That process is known as the identification, right? And identification is mainly based on the in the place of plants, the names are giving, scientific names are giving mainly based on the which two nomenclature books are the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, ICBN and ICZN, right? That is zoological nomenclature. And next we talk about what is the binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature is a system of naming of the living organisms, and it contains two components. That is, first one is the genus name that begins with the capital letter, and second one is the specific epithet or the species name that begins with a small letter. And if you are writing it in the handwritten or writing with the hand, it should be underlined separately. Both the names should be underlined separately, as well as and if you are printed, if you are printing it, you have, it should be in italics. Why? To indicate the Latin origin. And then scientific names are usually in the Latin irrespective of their origin. Then that is about the binomial nomenclature, that are universal rules, which are the rules that you have to follow. After assigning the scientific name, we talk about the classification of organisms. That is, to make the study easier, we have to classify the organisms into different categories based on their easily observable characteristics, right? So that is called as a classification. Then this scientific name for this categories is known as the taxa. And this process of classification of living organisms into different taxa based on their characteristics are known as the taxonomy. And next word is the systematics. What is systematics? Is a study of different kinds of organisms and their diversity, and together with that what you have the relationship among them also we are studying in the systematics. And systematics, that is the word derived from the Latin word systema, that means a systematic arrangement of the organisms. And Systema Naturae is the book published by the Linnaeus, Carolus Linnaeus, and it contains 5900 plants. And the systematics, today's systematics includes the identification, classification, nomenclature, as well as the evolutionary relationship among the organisms. That is very important point. You can see this kind of questions in the, that is why I added this point also here in this. Today's systematics also includes the identification, classification, nomenclature, as well as the evolutionary relationship. And another one more point is that the binomial nomenclature that was proposed by the Carolus Linnaeus, who was known as the father of modern taxonomy. And basic examples I have given is the Ficus religiosa. And while uploading the video, I will also include one more slide in between them and without any explanation, that is the some of the examples of the scientific names given. Okay, that is the example I have told you, I have stated here is the mango tree. The scientific name of the mango tree is the Mangifera indica, and for the peepal tree it is Ficus religiosa. Okay, and thank you for watching my video, and I think you guys can understand or follow my videos. And if there is any suggestion, please let me know through the comments, and share with your friends if it is easy for you to understand and follow. And the way of teaching also, if you are interested, please share with your friends. And those who are watching the part 2 for first time, then go and watch my part 1 that I uploaded 2 days back. Then bye.